Talking Tesla.
I'm not sure if like my foot should be on the brake or the accelerator.
They put rings on Elon.
It must be some sort of geometrical algorithm.
I don't think you need to touch the steering wheel there, Tom.
Oh, I'm sure there's some math. So SpaceX, here's the deal. Landing a rocket on a drone ship is key. Charger.
How am I expected to drive a car without autopilot? Safely.
Charger. You know, I'm not a good parker, Tom.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit it. I just think that this is a car company that is run by super geeks. All the other cars are going to be stupid cars compared to this car, Tesla.
You don't even have to remember that. You've got a Model X. I have seen the future, and it is light pole charging.
No, I wouldn't call it a screw-up. Do you like your Model X?
God, it's beautiful. Hey, people of the Talking Tesla universe, it's time for Talking Tesla 196. I have an enormous amount of enthusiasm about this show because it's been a week since we did the last show. I went home, I did a lot of stuff at home.
Gardening? Were you gardening?
I did some gardening. I never do that, but I did some gardening. I went for probably a surf. I did some work. It's not like we recorded this straight after the last one we did. That didn't happen. No, this is totally a week later.
That's deceptive.
And I'm really excited because it's pretty late. And I'm not going to last the whole show. And I'm just going to walk out, which is kind of one of my favorite things to do, is just like leave the show. Now, Joel's on the East Coast. He's 3 hours ahead. But Joel is what we call a man. He is able to do things that are very strengthy and manly. I am an elderly man.
Strengthy?
I have to go to bed. And every morning... I'm a healthy man because every morning at 9 a.m. I have a large bowel movement. The problem is, Tom...
You don't get up till 9:30.
I don't get up till 9:30. It's an old joke, but it's a good one.
It is a classic.
Okay, what are we talking about?
I just wanted to double check. This is a family show or a family of shows?
Family of shows. This is not a family show.
Okay.
It's a family of shows.
I just want to get that straight.
Do I have to bring all the energy? Is anybody else going to join in now? We're going to start the show. What are we doing here? Come on.
Oh, my Lord.
Let's talk about some
In fact,
things.
I am standing at the microphone because I am here along with Tom Wolfson and Joel Sapp.
Who's in Massachusetts. And let's be clear. We're not 100% sure that you're going to hear Joel for the next hour and a half in any way, shape, or form.
Joel, are you there, Joel?
He says his mic is on. He claims that he can see a waveform, technical term. He's not really clear on what that means. It's okay. And so I may say things like, "What do you think, Joel?" And you, as the listener, may hear this. That would be Joel.
Oh, dead air is a really good way to do this so far, right?
It's going to be a great show either way.
Either way. It's going to be great.
I was just thinking we could start a new podcast. Where's Joel? Ooh. And we just get together every day, a daily podcast. And we're like, Joel? And just put in silence.
Ooh.
That's it. It's like a 30-second show. Millions of hits.
You might actually be onto something. We could actually put out a daily show of just silence.
Of silence.
There you go.
All we'd have to do is write like what today's show's about, and then just watch the hilarity.
Here it is. I'm going to do it for you right now.
From the reviews.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's December 22nd. No, there's no laughing. You can't really laughing.
I'm sorry.
You wrecked that show. We have to re-record the
show. You threw me off. Why I was laughing is because you said it's December 22nd.
Yeah.
It's not.
No,
it's not even close to December 22nd.
It's months after December 22nd.
Or before. It's hard to know at this point. So
that reminds me of the joke of the Rolex. I always wanted a Rolex. They're really expensive.
They are.
And this older gentleman who was sort of one of my mentors says, well, I don't think you should get it, but go ahead. It's always correct twice a day.
That's good.
It's not that good.
No.
Can we start the show now?
I thought we did.
Well, we did, but...
We did. Well, we were talking about...
start.
Well, I wanted to let the people know, in case they didn't hear Joel, that we're not idiots. Joel is.
I think that
Oh, man.
I'm just saying if, Joel. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I said if there's a chance. Robert's done this, where he's put, let's say, questionable audio forward for us.
Questionable.
I know. I
That's
do not
a compliment.
want
I
to do
haven't had a compliment from you in a while, Tom.
I don't believe that that you've really put out questionable audio for us, Joel, but I don't know. This could be the first time. Anyways, let's talk about Elon. Let's talk about Twitter, because Elon and Twitter is like the Reese's peanut butter cups of this century. They're two great things. Elon's great.
Yeah.
Twitter's great.
Which is the chocolate?
Put them together.
Which one is the chocolate?
It doesn't matter.
Can I just butt in here for a second?
Yeah, please.
I love peanut butter. I have it every day.
Every day?
Every single day.
Wow.
I love chocolate.
Okay.
Put it together. Disgusting.
Oh,
why?
I hate
In all forms?
the peanut butter cup, the American, you people in this country with your peanut butter cups.
So, like, you're talking about Reese's, but there are other peanut butter cup situations.
They're
that
all
you can-
disgusting.
Okay.
wow. That's really harsh.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it's very
but
strong
stop
words.
it. The whole combining of two things that are fantastic separate, coming together like that, grotesque.
Now, I don't want to disparage your entire country, but you're Australian. You do some weird things.
Yeah, like eat moldy yeast.
Eat moldy yeast. That's one of the things
If
that they
you
do.
come at Vegemite, I will walk over there and I will give you the back of my hand, young man. Oh! Sorry.
Have you ever asked Mel this question? This is fun. Watch his face. Everybody pay attention.
Yep.
Vegemite is not as good as Marmite.
Oh, shut up. You do not know what you're talking about. Marmite's disgusting. It's English, for goodness sake. Vegemite is delicious, and it's Australian.
It's exactly the same thing.
It's not the same. One starts with a V, the other one with some other letter.
All right.
One of them is more strong. I thought the English version was stronger.
Yeah, because it's English.
Yeah.
So it's stronger.
Oh. Okay.
I'm about to get a lot of
Turn
hate
that
mail
into a
from
real
Australia. Anyways,
Insult.
let's go back to Elon and Twitter, peanut butter, chocolate, whatever two things you like to get. What two things do you like together, Mel, besides yourself and sleeping?
Those two, I was going to say, not being here right now. It's one.
This
plus
show without you.
being at home asleep.
Okay.
That would be two.
Fair enough. I went to Mel's house recently at like 7:00 to drop off
In
a
the
loaf.
morning or at
no,
night?
in the evening.
Okay.
To drop off a loaf of bread that I baked with my own two hands.
Delicious.
Had a lovely hour-long conversation with his wife at the front door.
At the front door, she wouldn't let you pass.
No, she's a smart lady.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not allowed in the Herbert domicile. She's very, very wise on her part. And then I left, and she texted me, just so you know, Mel was asleep. Like, she wanted to make it clear that he wasn't just hiding in the corner waiting for me to leave. He was actually asleep
He was
at
behind
7
the door.
at 7 p.m. on a weeknight. I think he probably, you had like track practice the next morning that you had to get to?
Yeah, and something very important to get up for. I think it was the BM, the bowel movement I had to have. I had to wake up for that, but
That's
I never
good, yeah.
do.
She
I've
does
been
like
through
it
that.
better when you get out of bed. But anyways, so we got Elon and we've got Twitter, and Elon was trolling, which is what they called it. I don't know why they use the word trolling. I like trolls. They're cool. Elon was trolling GM and Chrysler and got a little positivity back from the old Ford CEO, the new Ford CEO, Jim Farley, not related to Chris.
It's not Chris's brother?
No, I don't believe it's Chris. No.
Okay, fine.
Not Chris. So Elon tweeted that Tesla and Ford are the only American car companies not to have gone bankrupt out of the thousands of car startups. Prototypes are easy. Production is hard. And being cash flow positive is excruciating, as we have talked about ad nauseum on this show. And Ford CEO Jim Farley, he tweeted a one-word response: respect, which I thought was interesting. So Ford, just so you know, was never one of those companies that took the funds from the government during
The bailout.
during the last bailout, and they kept going. And they have recently joined the ranks, finally. Well, not really finally, but again, I guess we would say again.
But with a big splash.
Joined the ranks of the EV evolution, the EV, whatever you want to call it.
Evolution?
The evolution of transportation with their Mach-E, and they managed to sell 3,700 or so Mach-E's in February. And I was excited by this number because I was like, oh, we're going to start seeing Mach-E's all over the place.
Right.
Which would be great. I've only seen one from about 85 yards away at the LA Auto Show because that's as close as they
wouldn't let us near it.
They would let us get. But so that happened on Twitter and again the Mach-E and Morgan Stanley's analysis says that Ford, those 3,000 Ford Mach-E's basically 100% impacted Tesla's market share. Mm-hmm. Tesla's market share went from 81% to around 69% because of
69
one vehicle. Okay, are you Beavis or Butthead? Which one? Like what's happening?
Elon does it all the time.
I've got a question.
Oh, please.
They wrote that like it made Tesla's sales go down, but Tesla's sales could have been exactly the same or have gone up, and it's just sort of diluted by the fact that there's another EV maker out there.
Right.
And that's exactly what we want. So I thought it was like being a little bit weird. It's like, oh, it's Tesla's sales are down. No, it's just because there's another EV maker that people are buying.
It was a tad clickbaity in the way that it was put out there, in my personal opinion, and obviously Mel's. But it is an interesting question that like the sale of 6,000 vehicles impacted market share. Right? Like, I mean, again, Tesla owns 80% of the market. So Tesla sells 50,000 cars a month. That's 80% of the market. If they sell 57,000 cars, it's 69% of the market. It's like, it's not a big difference for them, but it is a big difference in market share until the market is exponentially bigger, right?
Get used to this because Tesla's market share is going to plummet in the next 10 years, even while they're making more and more and more. So it is a stupid thing to talk about market share when it comes to the growth of Tesla. They're going to start selling millions of cars, but every year there is many, many millions of cars sold, and so we want this to happen. We want Toyota to make $1 trillion, and we want Ford to make $1 trillion. So stop thinking about market share and just talk about sales.
Right. Come on, Mel. Quit using math.
I was told
there would be no math.
But you could say that a lot, like from the very beginning, right? Like people, that's the thing. And to your point, I guess this is the thing that people have used to sort of keep Tesla down. Oh, it's a 1% market share, right? It's a 0.2% market share. Like, well, and that matters, right? In the big general scheme of things. But I mean, like Ford's 3,000 cars in that particular instance, not even statistically significant, but it's significant because it's out there now, right? 200, 300 miles of range. Mach-E is out there. It's got the Mustang nameplate on it. So, Ford's in. It's not a Focus. Thank God it's not a Focus. But, it's kind of cool that we're starting to see this drumbeat. You can go to a Volkswagen dealer right up the street, buy an ID right now. You can get.
I don't want it.
Like they're out there.
I don't want it.
But you can.
I know, but I don't want it.
But we gotta talk people into doing that. We can't just
That's
be
right. Like
Teslas.
some people are really, they loved all of the Volkswagens because they didn't buy the diesel ones. Mm-hmm. They loved their Volkswagen or their Audi. They loved their Ford whatevers.
Why does she keep talking to us?
I don't know.
Oh, let's jump on Tom for
Please
being
do.
up the show. And so people are like really dedicated to their brands. And if they have like a Ford pickup truck and they want, oh, maybe I will get an electric car, a Mustang, I'm all on it. So hell, man, I think go buy whatever electric car you want as long as it doesn't have a tailpipe.
Porsche, buy them all, whatever they are, man. If it's electric, you should get one.
You should. Not
They're expanding
hybrid.
the market.
Not a hybrid. No.
Like full electric.
Yeah, Joel.
Yeah, it just the more this continues, the more that there's serious contenders, serious cars that are out there that have solid range, that have solid features, good UI. They're going to start to continue to expand the market, and so the hard thing is to know exactly. Because Tesla is not releasing monthly numbers, more of the quarterly numbers. I'm quite sure they're going to continue to do their 50. What they're looking to do is around 50% each quarter or 50% a year. But I think this is a good thing. But Mel's right, though. You're going to continue to see. You can see Tesla sell 5 million cars, and they could lose market share that year. So it's an expanding market, and when you have a lot more players, your market percentage is going to go down. And that 80% is the U.S. number. So
I've got a question for you, Joel. What do you think, fast forward 10 years? what do you think Tesla's market share in the US will be?
Of
what would they be
EV
making?
sales or of all auto sales?
All auto sales, because by then I'm guessing 2031 will be into that most cars in the US will be actually electric. So give me a number. Is it like 1% ballpark, 1%, 10%, 30%?
I'd say between 20 and 25%.
So 2025 we make about 15 million cars a year
I
here.
thought it was
so
close to 30.
It's like 3 million cars a year. So I think it'll actually be higher than that. I think they'll be in the 5 million range by in 10 years, maybe more.
What? How many cars are going to sell? Or
Yes.
So
Yeah, as a percent,
Well-
I think we sell in the US 15 million cars a year. Is that right?
We're going to look that up.
I think it's 15.
yeah, it's 15.
You're right. If Tesla could be making Tesla, I'm thinking worldwide, Tesla will probably be making well over 5 million a year, but not in the US. So,
Yeah. So I'm saying worldwide, 25%, 20%, something like that. So I think well over 10 million cars worldwide.
that
by
sounds right.
2030.
Because you got Cybertruck, you got 3, Y, S, X, Roadster, and the cheap versions that are theoretically coming. I'm going to give it to you.
There's potentially maybe 2 coming out this year. The German design car and the Chinese design car, or at least announced. So, there's gonna be a few cars. I'd say it's gonna be close to the over 15 million.
So they're going to go from, what are we at? 500,000 units. 500,000 units in this is a U.S. number. That's the global number.
That's the global number.
500,000 global. That's out of 30 million cars globally. Less than what is that?
No.
What?
It's the. I mean, they're only in 3 markets. I mean, 3 key markets, right? So U.S. is 15, Europe is about 13, and China is 21 million cars a year. But worldwide, it's like about 100 million cars.
Okay, but the 3 markets that they're in is what? 40 million cars? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And they're selling
45.
500,000 out of 40 million, right? I mean, are we gonna?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
We're gonna agree.
Yeah, that's
We're
around
gonna agree on
2%.
that. So what is that?
2%
Like
of the market?
2% of the market, and so you think as the market for EVs grows overall exponentially, that in 10 years Tesla's gonna have 25% of a market they currently have less than 2% of.
I think that's possible because of what they are doing, and they're years ahead of everybody else. And it's called gigafactories, and it's called cell supply, and it's called battery making. And I don't know. We're making these numbers up, but they will be a much bigger player than they are today if all of these things work. So, although their percent of EVs will go down from 80%. Their market share of total cars sold will go up if they can find enough nickel and stuff to put into these things.
But I think at some point that's going to be the issue for all of these companies, right? Like all of these companies at some point, nickel, iron is going to be an issue. Whether or not they can make these cars profitable is the deal. And I guess at some point people aren't going to have an option, right? Like they're not going to be there's going to be a point where you or I or anybody's not going to be able to say I can buy a gas car for $10,000 cheaper. They're going to be like, I need to buy a car. These are my options.
Because they're going to be on par.
Those cars are not going to exist.
I see.
Right, potentially, right? So your only options are going to be very inexpensive electric vehicles with low range, like we talked about on the last show, 80 miles, 100 miles, 150 miles or less.
Which was a week ago, that show.
Potentially.
It wasn't like an hour and a half ago.
Yeah. We talked about the last show.
It was a week show.
Or they're going to buy, a 300, 500, 600 mile sort of range. Those are going to be sort of like the options. And obviously you're going to have your luxuries and your economy. But I mean, I think what we're not seeing like Toyota really at this point, right? Like the last shoe that hasn't really dropped to this point is Toyota.
Toyota is weird. Toyota, the maker of the Prius, that led the sort of the eco car thing, has not jumped on board. And yet countries, states, multiple countries, multiple states have said, well, you're not going to be able to sell a gas car by 2030, 2035. So what's Toyota doing? Are they asleep at the wheel, or are they about to drop an announcement? Oh, we secretly have got this whole thing planned, and 5 years from now we're going to make 1 trillion electric cars.
Well, so Toyota, you remember, has been piloting this super sophisticated, really reliable AI autopilot. I've seen videos, they're in Japanese that I can't understand, but from what I can see, driving in Japan is no easy task. First of all, they drive on the wrong side of the street.
They drive on the left side of the street, Robert.
Yeah, the wrong side. And then they have like really confusing traffic merging, and it's very tight.
All the signs are in Japanese. Nobody can read.
Can't read the signs.
Are you guys really going to say all of this stuff on this show? Is that really what's happening?
I'm going to say that I was in Japan, and there is no way I would drive in Japan.
Okay.
And I was driven around
there
a lot
are millions
in Japan.
of Japanese people that drive in Japan, right?
Driving in Japan is not that common a thing. Most people take public transportation.
Okay.
And so I think Toyota has its cards up its sleeve. They're smart. They've got great engineering. They did a couple of cars. Yeah. I mean, like the Mirai, meh. They've done, the Prius and the plug-in Prius and the
RAV4, they had electric, but even that wasn't their technology, right? That was not their electric technology.
But I wouldn't put it past them to jump in with some pretty compelling cars. They're going to have to. I mean, what are they going to do? They're not going to sell in Germany. They're not going to sell in California. I mean, these are two big car markets that they sell already in.
Yeah.
So I think that they're going to come through.
But I think that's I honestly do believe like they're the gorilla that we have not heard from as it pertains to all of this stuff that we're hearing. Porsche and Volkswagen, which are the same company, I understand that, and BMW,
even Jaguar,
and Jaguar, right, and Volvo, right, all these companies that are just like we're going, and you just don't hear it from Toyota. And Toyota is so big and has so much capability, and manufacturing know-how and international service like they are just a huge player to be silent for so long as this goes.
So there's some thought that because they put a lot of effort into nickel metal hydride batteries that didn't really play for them as well as they wanted it to, that they're a little fearful to jump into the current technology, and they're sort of sitting on the sidelines waiting for solid state. And so if you read anything about Toyota and batteries, they're sitting on solid state. And I think we'll see what the answer ultimately is, but I think a lot of people feel that they're going to wait and then they're going to jump on that technology, but that'll start at the prices that the old lithium ion started with. And the game is going to be pricing.
Didn't Lucid Air just drop their solid state battery?
Drop it meaning they weren't going to do it, or drop it meaning
they were going to do it.
Out?
We have it, and I was just reading an article about it saying it's one of those things where all of these people are coming out saying you're going to be able to charge from 0 to 100 in 5 minutes, and it'll get 400 miles. And everybody that says that says it because you can get to 90% of that technology. You can get there really fast, but it's the last 10% that they're having trouble with. And so, I think I'll check it. Lucid Air, which have been banking on this, are now saying, not so much. We're not going to do that. So if Toyota is waiting for this breakthrough in solid-state batteries, they might be a long way behind everybody else because that is not a technology that's going to be here tomorrow.
But I have a question for you guys, and this is an honest question that I don't know the answer to. If solid-state batteries break and work, right, and the technology gets solved, does that fix the manufacturing constraints in battery space that we currently see, that Elon talks about ad nauseum? Like, if they do solid state, can you make as many as you need without any of these other problems?
Good question.
There's some good parts to that, but it really depends on what the ultimate solution is. I mean, it's going to fix some cold weather issues, and it's going to probably speed up at least sort of 2017, 2018 charging speeds in comparison.
Right, but I'm talking about the manufacturing of the batteries, Joel. Like,
no, I know,
is
but
it
you're
easier?
talking about something that doesn't exist right now, and so it really depends on how they get to that cost breakthrough. And so my feeling is that it's going to come in and it's going to be about $160, $170 a kilowatt hour, and they're going to be competing against something that's heavier, but it's costing maybe $50 a kilowatt hour. And if you're competing against something that's $50 a kilowatt hour, you kind of lost. At least in that market. Maybe you could do airline market. And that company that Mel was talking about, Fisker is one.
Fisker
that dropped it.
Yes, not Lucid.
And I don't remember hearing Lucid in
No, it was
solid
Fisker.
state.
You're right. I was incorrect. Thank you for the in-show correction. Correction, we call it.
We're not calling it that. That's the one thing we are definitely not calling. Not calling the show. Not calling that. That's not a thing.
So Tesla, Tom. So the sort of if you listen to some other Tesla podcasts and YouTube channels, Tesla is saying that they're expecting to grow 50% a year easily for the next 10 years. And this year they didn't give a yearly number, but they said 50%. So 50% over 10 years is over 20 million cars by 2030.
Dang.
I'm not saying that. That's a huge number.
That's
the biggest company right now is
20. So
it's
that's
double.
You're saying 20 million cars
by the end of 10 years.
in 10 years. So that would be at current market share, global market share. What?
I don't know what the global number of
That's
cars
20%. According
That's
to
a
what
20%
Joel
number.
said, was 100 million vehicles.
Even if the plants were the size of Shanghai planned, right? So Shanghai has a Model 3, a Model Y building, and now they're building the Model 2 building. That would be a 1 million car output right there. Maybe 2 million. But that would mean they would have to bring 10 of those online in 1 year.
No, in 10 years.
To go from 10 to 20 million in that final year.
Oh, you're saying to do the
to
growth.
sustain that kind of growth, that just feels like smoking dope.
Yeah.
but
But I think I think when you put it that way, it's interesting.
But at the same time, what it sounds like is that each factory that's being built, not only are they building a factory, that's kind of the minor side of it. What's really happening is they're building the blueprint, if you will, not just of the structure, but of the entire bringing in the materials, creating because they're vertically integrated, creating like one big stamper for the entire or front half and back half of the vehicle. They're bringing in this incredible system. And so if they can do that, then they could just blueprint that somewhere else. If they go, oh, well, we're going to put a factory in Indonesia. Well, what does it look like? Oh, it looks kind of like the Chinese factory. Great. Let's just bring everything that was done at China, drop it down in Indonesia, and they don't have to recreate this every time because that's what they've been doing, right? They've done a lot of recreating each time they build a factory. If they get it down so that they have sort of like an X factory or whatever, I should say, a Y factory, a 3 factory, a Cybertruck factory, a semi factory. They could just, like Legos, bring these things in. So there is a chance that Elon is smarter than I would like to think I am.
Yeah.
Well, what you're talking about is they're already doing, like the modular in Texas, they basically brought in the Legos. And they're building that factory very quickly.
But we don't
then
know
there's
that because that's a
India.
whole different line with Cybertruck. So I'm not sure that's 100% accurate, right?
Well, they're a manufacturing company, and they're the machine that builds the machine. And we're seeing Elon has said in the past that you'd need about 100 gigafactories, full-fledged gigafactories, to do all the battery production and the car production that the world sort of needs. But they're going pretty fast because we've heard about India, and then this week we heard about England. That's not a completely done deal yet, but you can see what's going on here. And then you're going to hear about another one and another one, another one. So they could be up to a significant number of these. They're not gigafactories anymore. What do they call them? Pentafactories? Terafactories. So the biggest thing is, as we've found with nickel, is that do they have the raw materials? So nickel, they're going to be a part owner in an Indonesian mine. And this is where I think we're going to see them starting to go all the way back to the raw materials to make sure that they can have the flow of materials that they need. They're going to have to start getting back up the line because they're going to be competing with everybody. And the only way you fix that is if I own the mine that makes the nickel and makes the battery that makes the car that makes the Powerwall. And I think we're going to start to see that more.
They've got a litthum mine they're developing in Nevada.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that these are some of the interesting things, right? So when we started doing this show many years ago, we were like begging, we were like hoping to get to the point where EVs were viable, right? And now we're having a conversation about in 10 years, are EVs going to be 100% of automobile market share? I mean, that's a gigantic mindset shift on some levels. And now we're talking about like actual possible logistics to get us there, which I think all of those things are super fascinating. But it does concern me, again, like Tesla's still relatively nascent, still making relatively small amount of cars in the general scheme of the 20 million cars. And they're running into massive raw materials issues. And they're one of these companies. So like, do we have a fundamental raw material issue on this planet when dealing with what we are dealing with?
We used to think we had a lithium problem, and Elon has said we don't have a lithium problem. We don't have an iron problem. But right now we have a nickel problem, and they are really got a nickel problem. So there needs to be more nickel plants. And despite the fact that he said, like, if you dig up the nickel, we will buy it, apparently nobody's really done that. Even though nickel prices are exploding. So that's why I think they're going to have to become a mining company. I think they're going to have to go and get together with mining companies and say, look, we'll give you a cash infusion of $10 billion. Let's go dig up some nickel, unless they find another thing. And this is part of why they're doing the iron lithium batteries. And they're really going to be constrained the next few years. I don't know what happens 5 years from now.
I have a question for you, Mel. What do you think about SpaceX involvement? Like send a Starship
I knew
this.
You were going to say
up
this.
to some big asteroid that is 100% nickel, and just drag that puppy back.
The
and start
expanse.
chunking it up. Exactly.
You know, there's TED Talks on that saying, if you could find a way to lasso like nickel and all these other heavy metals, and bring it back close to Earth and mine it.
Yeah.
That would be worth hundreds and hundreds of trillions of dollars.
Yes.
So maybe we're going to see that. And if they just blast it off course a little bit, it'll also be the end of the world.
Yes.
You guys want to do what? Who signs the permit for that kind of gig? So what we're going to do is we're going to go out into space, and we're gonna grab an asteroid, a big one, and we're gonna figure out some way to put some engines on it, and we're going to bring it off course, and we're going to bring it into low Earth orbit.
Yep.
You guys cool with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The question is, I think actually a couple years ago, I brought in an article that we didn't go far on. That was a TED Talk by a guy who's a lawyer who now specializes in intergalactic mining. And he has been working on the law of this.
He doesn't, because that's not a thing.
But he has. And he is part of a group, and they are trying to sort of start put together what would be the legal ramifications, whose law would it be open water law, right? Marine law that would govern these things, and they're going down that path. Because this stuff's going to happen.
Is it intergalactic or intragalactic?
Well, it's probably intrastellar.
Okay, interstellar. All right. Yes, Joel?
Yeah. Have you read a book? It's called Soonish. It talks about new technologies in the future that will change the future. I guess. And
Or the past, if it's
one,
really advanced.
one of them, one of them is Asteroid Mining, and it's kind of interesting. It's really difficult for me to see how you could go hundreds of millions of miles somewhere else to get something that it's not like nickel is rare here. It's just hard to get, or expensive to get.
Right.
And so, and that's sort of one of the things that this book talked about was, energy wise, it may be, you may find like a nice big asteroid that's fully metal, and it will have tons of nickel, tons of platinum, and tons of other precious metals. But still, though, we have those metals in the center of moons and Mars, or our moon, or even our own planet, if we had to get to it. But that's one of those things that I think we'll find enough nickel for this round of things.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be expensive, and everybody's going to be affected by this. So whoever is out there leading the charge will be the one that will sort of be some of the first leaders for sure.
It looks like a good book. I guess this is going to be your media pick because it's called Soonish, and it's by Kelly Weller-Smith, Weiner-Smith, and Zach Weiner-Smith. He's a cartoonist, and the book actually kind of looks like a Dr. Seuss book. Oh, did I say that?
Stop. We're not going there.
The good thing about this metals and nickel and all that stuff, as Elon has said during Battery Day, is that this doesn't have to go on forever. But you do have to create a whole bunch of batteries to do all the storage, a whole bunch of batteries to do all these cars and trucks. But you do get to a point where you basically can stop because you'll just be recycling them. And this is what Strobel is doing with his company. And so you'll get to the point where you don't have to keep digging this up. You'll just have to keep recycling it and refreshing it and cleaning it up and putting a bit of spit and polish. And so you don't have to think about this happening for thousands of years. This just is a thing that we're in right now, but have to be very aggressive about over the next few decades.
So it is the
Do you know
transformation.
where New Caledonia is?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you know where New Caledonia is?
In the South Pacific.
Right next to Old Caledonia?
No, it's near Papua New Guinea.
Oh, okay. I know where it is now.
Because Caledonia is like in England or something, but New Caledonia is like Papua New Guinea, somewhere like that. Tesla just did a contract or started a new contract to be a partner in a really big nickel mining facility. That's not, I don't think it's Indonesia. I mean, New Caledonia is its own country, right? So,
Yes.
But that's sort of your neck of the woods. Mel.
Yeah, it's basically Australia. Yeah. I wasn't sure which country it was, but they were having issues with environmental issues and making sure that the locals were happy with it. And that looks like they've signed off, and Tesla said, we're going to do this sustainably and you're going to get a significant chunk of this. So that was that's the first of what I think is going to be a number of things you're going to see like this, that we're actually working with the mining company and reassuring the locals, and I hope that they can pull it off and do it sustainably.
But like, I guess the question that I would love to know is like, what amount of mining needs to be done to make 20 million cars? Like, that's what I want to know. Like, well, are we talking about 50-fold increase in what we're doing right now, 100-fold increase? Because I don't know about you, but like, I've seen the impacts of mines all over this planet.
Yeah, it's pretty
They
bad.
pretty much suck.
Yeah.
Like, they're terrible for humans, for the water, for the
wildlife.
animals.
Yeah.
Like mining sucks ass.
Yes.
It really does.
But the question is, how much of that would we tolerate to get to a fully renewable transportation system?
It's an excellent question. And again, like, drilling for oil sucks ass too. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I understand that that's also very, very terrible, and extracting oil is very, very terrible. But like, trading one for the other.
Waste.
What was that?
And it's waste as well.
And it's waste. Yeah.
So I mean, really, the question is, well, one, I think that everybody well, not everybody, but people want to do this in a sustainable manner and try to do it as safe as possible. And we'll have to see. I'd like to go and visit some of these mines to understand what it looks like. But at some point, whatever that point is, let's say it's 2040, we have all the nickel, all the lithium in sort of circulation, where then it becomes a more just recycling it and using it in a more efficient way. So you have higher efficiency batteries, or you're using like lithium air batteries. You're not using any nickel. That point where it's already above the ground at that point.
And this isn't like one of these bullshit things that they sold us about aluminum cans and plastic bottles being recyclable, right? Like this is an actual thing that can actually, right? Like, because that's like when I was, they're like, the aluminum can, it's the greatest thing. You can use this forever and ever and ever. And that turned out to be bullshit. Well, and plastic, and that turned out to be bullshit. And just now.
Right.
They're starting to like say, okay, we won't use virgin plastic to make all of the that we're doing, but like.
Right. Well, but they're not going to suck that like 15-mile wide island out of the Pacific Gyre.
No, they can't possibly.
Gyre.
No.
Yeah, but the question is, when we were talking just in the last, I think it was 2 shows ago, we were talking about wind power. We talked about how we should super overbuild the capacity for batteries and wind and solar so that we would have enough energy to last on a windless day or on a series of cloudy days. And so that will take even more batteries and even more nickel. So the question is, where is the real point at which we call it enough? And I don't know. This is like a big picture question that maybe somebody like Tony Seba has written about.
So I'd like to push back a little bit on the aluminum piece. What you said, Tom.
Push away.
So I completely agree on plastics and the recycling of plastics. The post-consumer piece is just is BS. It hasn't been done. It's still cheaper to be able to use virgin plastic than it is to use recycled plastic, especially in food grade things. But over 75% of all aluminum that's been produced in the U.S. is actually recycled or is being still in use.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's extremely expensive for at least for aluminum, and hopefully it will be the case in governments will make it the same case for some of these other metals. But it's extremely expensive to take bauxite and convert it to aluminum, which is that sort of that raw material that you make aluminum from. Tons of energy, but to take post-consumer aluminum and make it into something else is much less energy, and so the economy sort of forces that function of using as much of the aluminum as possible.
Okay, fair enough.
We have to make sure.
Thank you for that correction, Joel. So again, let's talk about it from again, we were sold a bill of goods, and I don't know how long ago.
I agree.
I don't know how long ago the aluminum thing became that, but even in the numbers that you just gave out, again, 25% of new aluminum is needed every year, and if we're at a point where we need 25% of new nickel, who knows what that number is, or 25% of new iron. This is kind of a silly conversation, and I get that, but it's just food for thought, things that we're thinking about, things I would love to know a little bit more, like what is actually needed. Like if we need to make 75 billion 4680 batteries, right? What's the weight of the materials that go in that compared to known reserves, or what that math is doable, right? Like that math is doable.
Right.
Based on the technology that we know now about the batteries, the range, their ability to hold energy, like it's all an algorithm that somebody needs to do.
Yeah.
So, what was it, Robert? Was it 5 terawatt hours of worldwide?
I don't remember, but
production?
It was a giant number.
Yeah.
But that wasn't just for transportation, right? That was for storage.
That was storage.
That was everything, right? If we're just focusing on transportation, which we know we're not going to,
right?
And we're always going to get new storage technologies coming online, and Joel's about to talk about one of those in a minute as well.
I am, I guess.
So, anyways, I would say let's kind of move on from this particular topic. I think it's really interesting. I think we'll continue to watch it. I did want to talk a little more about a Tesla, like in the nuts and bolts of owning a Tesla. So the last week, I was driving down the freeway, 60 miles an hour, and I started hearing like a noise coming from the front underneath my car, like a
not a comforting.
Wait. Can you do that again?
Can you hear that?
Was it a hollow sound or was it more of a solid, sturdy sound?
It was kind of like a flapping, what I would call a flapping sound, like something moving hitting something not moving.
Yeah.
That's the way that I looked at it. So I pulled over.
Drive over something.
So I got off the freeway and I pulled over, and I got under there, and there's like in the front of the Model 3, there's like this material, and it kind of feels like really dense carpeting, but it's not, obviously, because it's in the underside of the car. And so basically there are these two like pieces of material, and they meet, and there's some fasteners, and the back one, and one of them basically ripped. I don't know what happened to it, but a little corner of it fell off. And so it was loose and it was dangling. And at higher speeds is when you heard it, like at 30 miles an hour, you didn't hear it, but higher speeds you heard it. So I went under there and I taped it up with some like packaging tape, duct tape, whatever I had in my car at the moment.
Oh, wow.
And that helped it. So that's what's going on in my car. So I reached out to Tesla via the app. So I opened the app. The app has a service situation in it. You ask for service. You kind of tell them what your problem is, and they set up an appointment to come out to your place to fix it. But
now, was it? Did you do text? Did you like?
Yeah,
say,
I just
this is
opened
the
up.
problem? Or did they have like a drop down?
I pushed the service thing, and it says like, what service do you have? And I went. It was one of the options was like exterior noise rattles. So I clicked on that one. And I made a service, but the whole point of this is this one very specific thing, is that I said to them, because I went under my car, I said to them, the front flap, where the front flap and the second piece of material meet, there's some kind of problem. One of them, the second one is loose, and I believe it is the second one that's loose. That's the one that the air would get under, because one goes sort of over the other one, the front one or whatever. But then they responded, and they were like, they said, are you able to provide us photos in regards to your concern? And I thought, that's interesting. And I didn't respond because I was working, I was busy. And then they wrote, hi, this is Tesla Mobile Service. If we are unable to fully prepare for this service visit by the end of the day today, we will not be able to send a technician out to the appointment, and you will have to reschedule for a future appointment date on your mobile app. So let's say I couldn't get under my car, like I have some physical impairment or some inability to get under my car,
arthritis.
Or maybe I don't even have a camera phone. Who knows? There's got to be people on the planet. Like, we know 20% of the people in this country don't have access to broadband or computers and things like that. So like, it's not out of the realm.
Yeah.
It's like
seems kind of dogmatic.
Right. Ask some other questions and that was a bummer. So I went under there and I took some photos, and then they reached out and said, okay, please review the estimate for the amount of $231 when possible to your mobile application. So they send you a PDF, and you have to click on the PDF and you have to approve or not approve it. And I was like, okay, I hit approve, $230. I mean, I need to get it fixed. I guess I could just duct tape the hell out of it, but there's a battery up under there. So
yeah.
I want to make sure that it's somewhat protected. But then I found a document. I did a search for like Model 3, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what it was. It was like Model 3 undercover thing coming apart. And I found an NHTSA.gov sort of, what is it called? A bulletin?
A bulletin?
A bulletin?
Yeah.
That basically read, replace front and mid aero shield panels. So these are the aero shields.
Okay.
Right? And it says, On some Model 3 vehicles, the front end or mid-aero shield panels might be susceptible to damage when driving through standing water. Updated panels are available, which have a more robust design than original panels. Correction is if a customer complained or missing or damaged, inspect the panels, and if necessary, replace both parts. So I found that, and I sent that via the app to Tesla's service after I had
what's broken.
After I approved the warranty. Well, I was like, I have an early Tesla, and again, like I understand, like people design things. They redesign things because they break. Like, I don't have any issues with that. So I sent that to them, and this was the response. We have generated an estimate for diagnosis. This is to cover any non-warranty items / labor which may arise in the diagnostics or repairs of the vehicle. If found to be due to a defect in manufacturing or material workmanship, warranty will cover the cost. So that, I mean, again, good answer, good response. They upped my date from the 12th to tomorrow, so they're coming tomorrow.
That's great.
So again, like interesting, but I am kind of curious. Like the photo thing kind of bummed me out. Like the way they answered that, I think they could do better. They didn't do terribly, but they could do better. Especially if I was in a place where I couldn't potentially drive to a service center. Like, are they just not gonna deal with it, or like they know what's under there? Even if they couldn't come out and make the fix, they should be able to come out and do the diagnostic. And maybe if I would have said, look, I'm not physically capable of being able to take photos, they would have. But it just felt like there may have been like, are you having trouble taking photos? Is there something we can do to us? Like some other better response to that.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting into like this new territory where people aren't going to be able to do that. I'm not sure now, this time of year, I would get under my car here in New England.
Oh, that's an excellent point because of weather and stuff like that. Right.
And
go ahead, Joel. Lay down on that slush and snow that's all wet with your nice jacket.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that, like, again, I'm not digging into Tesla. I just wanted to, like, I'm giving you guys information about what happened about a specific thing because I think it was interesting enough to bring up and get your guys' perspective.
Hey, the person who responded to you may have gotten their job with Tesla service 2 days ago.
That's true, yeah.
And they don't have a clue as to this.
Yeah. So,
but of course, if you went and looked on the forums, I bet you there's probably 25 pages of back and forth between people all about this one specific issue.
Well, we will talk about the demise of the forum. So maybe if it is on the forums, it's not going to be on there. Well, it'll be on there, but you won't be able to add to it soon. Tesla got rid of the forums.
Tesla got rid of their own, but not the Tesla Motor Club.
Oh, that's
forum,
true. That's true. The TMC,
which is also was down a week or so ago because they had to redo it. I think they were changing the software on it. I know I was it was right after the Supercharger event, which we'll talk about, the Santa Monica Supercharger that was went up in front of the Planning Commission
a couple weeks ago at this point.
Almost didn't pass. Hint, hint, wait for it. And I went on like a day or two afterwards to try and post a video drive-by that I did, and I couldn't post. Like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I couldn't post any of those days, and it turns out they were redoing the Tesla Motor Club forum.
Okay.
But it's a good resource if you have issues with your car. That's where a lot of people first found out about the MCU issue with the older Teslas. So
okay, well, I'll keep you posted to let you know kind of what's going on and just let you know, like even 230 didn't seem unreasonable for whatever is going on under there. So one way or the other, I think it needs to be fixed. There's a lot of stuff under there, that's for sure.
I'd push back a little bit if they tried to make you pay, especially if you saw a bulletin.
Oh, really? You think I should push back a little?
You will. You will.
Fascinating. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting how you would say that. Yeah. Okay.
Well, why don't we roll into that story about the forums and the new social media?
Okay.
We were talking about
sure, we
can
talk about that. I guess that's good. I got to scroll down a little bit. That is okay. So this is this could be a big deal to you if you, again, like Robert mentioned, that there are Tesla Motors Club forums if you're a member of a Motors Club, and I think you don't even necessarily have to be a member to post to the forum, but you can join those forums, and Robert will put those the link to that in the show notes if you don't know. But Tesla, for years and years, had forums on its website, and there's a lot of really good information, a lot of good community, and a lot of good conversation. But Tesla has changed that to a new site called engage.tesla.com, or not called that, but that is the URL for it is engage.tesla.com. And basically they're welcoming, this is very new, it's just happening, they're welcoming to a new platform for both Tesla public policy team and owners club. So it feels like for the first time
policy.
They're for the first time they want to utilize their growing community, us and the people listening to this show, to help inform public policy. And again, some of this is happening when Robert testifies at Santa Monica Supercharger hearings, which we're going to discuss. Like, that's a perfect example of the type of things that Tesla, I think, is trying to engage their bigger, larger, growing community of activists about climate issues or whatever kind of electronic vehicle issues and such. And so the idea behind it is to make it easy for community members to learn what's on top of Tesla's mind, be able to take meaningful action to support that, and to stay in the loop about those things. So, like, again, we've never really been engaged with Tesla's public policy team, and now this is a opportunity to do that, and hopefully they'll do a good job of that type of work. They're calling it a microsite. It will be the first direct feedback loop between customers and the public policy team. And I was just curious, like, generally what you guys thought about this move by Tesla. I don't know that they needed to remove the forums to do this, but they did, and so this is a thing.
I had a question for Robert, because I'm guessing Robert's is going to know more here. We saw I remember seeing a job posting for someone that was going to use and scour social media to pick up customer service issues and then handle those issues in some way. Is this somehow related to that as well?
I don't think directly. I recall at one of the global Tesla forums, which I think now is like a year and a half ago, when we got together, there was a group of people from a firm in San Francisco that wasn't Tesla, but they were kind of doing some like market research with us as guinea pigs. And I think this might be their site that's actually finally coming to fruition. But Tesla wanted, as it was presented, and I don't think this is any way proprietary, they wanted to engage customers in a more defined pattern. They didn't want to have, necessarily a few very powerful YouTubers or podcasters to be rallying the troops versus a Tesla Motors forum, the club forum. It's not really a club. It's called Tesla Motor Club, but it's technically not a Tesla club. It's an adjacent organization, but they've been around a long time, and they've had a listserv with lots of activity going on for like almost maybe a decade or more. And so Tesla wanted to, like they do with everything, vertically integrate that sort of activity onto their website. And so
that covered everything. That covered service issues. Like this is very, very focused on public policy, which is great. Again,
right, because I think that's the faction within Tesla that's willing to maybe pay for it, because they're trying to get people like us who live here in LA to show up at the Santa Monica City Planning Commission when Tesla's trying to get a 62 plug supercharger site built out. And Tesla, rightfully expected there would be pushback and there would be turbulence in trying to fly that aircraft to a safe landing.
Yeah, and one of the things, so the new website is live, engage.tesla.com, and one of the things that's on there right now is called Nebraska Take Action. So And this is a very interesting thing, right? So they want you. They're on here that says there's a button that lets you contact your reps, contact your senators now, encourage them to pass LB 633, targeted at people very specific. This campaign is targeted at people who reside in one of 8 districts within Nebraska, state legislators, and on the Transportation and Telecommunications Committee in Nebraska are currently considering this bill, LB 633, a solution that would bring Tesla to Nebraska. So under current state law, and all this information is in here, what you need to know. Under current state law, new entrants like Tesla are blocked from opening licensed sales location and service centers to service existing and future customers. State legislators are now considering the bill that would allow the direct sale and service of vehicles by a manufacturer only if the manufacturer does not have and has not had a franchise in Nebraska, which is actually really interesting wording when you talk about the stuff that we talked about in the last show in terms of like Toyota potentially going into the market and all of that stuff. Like it would kind of make an unfair competitive environment in some ways for those other companies that have a typical dealership model in Nebraska, but I understand why they would do it. And then only allows the manufacturer to sell and service the line, make a vehicle it manufactures. So again, interesting. Again, it's like, this is what we want to do. There's some Texas disaster relief on here, but it's like, this is a thing that we're targeting. This is how you can help us. This is a button. Like, this is great outreach by Tesla's public policy department. And I think if more and more of this stuff came online, like again, the Santa Monica thing is another example, like opening a supercharger in your area, if there is some local opposition or even has to be a local hearing, let more people know so they can be a part of it and ask the right questions or be able to help the people who are making the decisions make better, more informed decisions about what they're doing. Because as we'll find out in a little bit, some of the questions even being asked felt like there needs to be a higher level of baseline education as it pertains to a lot of this.
So Tesla's trying to get fans and people that care about electric cars and whatnot, trying to mobilize them to speak at different events, and try to leverage their knowledge and their influence to get more EVs into all these different states, and probably it'll start even to do that in other countries, I'm guessing, as well. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's that aspect of it for sure. There's a spot on here for Tesla Motor Clubs, like the LA Motor Club, to be able to post their events. So let's say you're a Tesla tourist and you're going to be in LA. Oh, I'm going to go see if there's a Tesla Club event going on because I want to see what their club is doing. So I think, again, that's great. Maybe it simplifies it. But I do think as we move forward, we're going to deal with gas stations being replaced by charging stations, the traditional dealership thing, right? The traditional dealership being done, like whether or not we're going to force landowners to put chargers in their apartment buildings, right? Like all of these things are issues that we know are going to come up because we've been talking about them forever and they haven't been a big deal because it doesn't matter if there's one EV in a building, but it'll matter if there's 30 or 40. We'll have to do something about that. Like something is going to have to happen, and it's only going to happen on the legislative end. So again, Tesla getting out in front of this with their public policy team and making this thing active, I think is very, very interesting. And I'm, for one, am probably going to like put some alert once a week on my calendar or something to go and take a look and see if there's anything kind of new posted, because I think it's actually going to be good fodder for this show. I didn't know about the Nebraska thing. It looked like you did, Joel, but I had no idea what was going on in Nebraska. And I think that's, important for us to be able to have a little bit more of a global view and open ourselves up. We're very guilty of like talking about California and LA and like San Fernando Valley issues on this show. And Joel has obviously given us a little more of an East Coast winter perspective, which is good when he's, correct about things, but otherwise.
And not going crazy.
So usually.
About things,
and not going crazy, like
I agree. I think this is, and I don't have any inside knowledge. This is not anything that I heard from anybody at Tesla, but the areas in which Tesla has been banging its head for parity with automobile dealers, the ability to open service centers or sales centers, or now, as we say, have a supercharger installed in an area there may be some sensitivity. I mean, there's lots of people who don't want Tesla to succeed. There's a lot of people who don't want Tesla supercharger stations like right across the street from their gas station, so that a bunch of people that come to them are no longer going to come to them because they have this wonderful alternative for filling up their electric cars.
Yeah, but I go across the street and grab a peanut butter cup while I was charging.
Yeah, well, don't tell Herbert that, because he does not want to mix those two. And so
Those are wrong.
Yeah, it is wrong. I didn't want to get in the middle of that because I didn't want to upset the man.
So it seems like you've had experience recently with some of these issues.
It's true. In fact, the Tesla advocacy team reached out to the Los Angeles club, and we had sort of a club Zoom gathering last Monday. It was actually a few Mondays ago, where they came online. It was Nolani Derrickson and Nadir Hossein, who I was going to call Hossaint.
So the same two people that did the presentation to the Santa Monica plant. So let's give a little bit of background. The Tesla wants to open a V3 supercharger in Santa Monica with 62 stalls. They needed to go to the City of Santa Monica's Planning Commission to give a presentation, and then the commission
get a permit.
The commission had to vote for a conditional use permit to change the use of this land that a landlord was going to lease to Tesla for 15 years to build a supercharger. So then as part of those meetings, they have public comments. And that you're saying that the same two people who did that presentation came to the club prior to
say, hey, this is what we're going to do. I didn't get to attend that meeting, but I'm aware of it. And it was basically to encourage LA area Tesla owners, who obviously have a commitment and an interest because they're a member of the club, to then join the Santa Monica meeting at, it was on a Wednesday at like 5:30 in the afternoon. And little did I know that it was going to run until like 9 p.m. OMG. That was painful.
They had a lot of questions.
They had a lot to say.
I missed the presentation part of it, but I showed up like right for the Q&A, and again, like, it was interesting. You know, some of my takeaways from it, I was actually surprised. City like Santa Monica,
Surprise is like a light word to use.
Seems like a very activist sort of city in Los Angeles. When I think of,
I was just going to ask a quick question. How big is Santa Monica? Is it on the water?
Oh,
tell a
excellent
little bit
question.
Like 90,000 residents. It is along the coast.
It's an unincorporated part of Los Angeles County.
It's incorporated. It is a city.
Right, but it's its own city. It's not
city.
LAPD, so I think that makes
Santa
it
Monica
technically
Police Department.
unincorporated, does it not?
No, unincorporated is an area that's just LA County without an associated city or municipality.
Okay.
So Santa Monica is its own city. It does sit up against the Santa Monica Bay. Mm-hmm. It's been an active city since the 1800s.
Right.
It has a county court, but it has its own police department, its own bus line, its own fire department. There's 90,000 people who live in Santa Monica.
It's got a community college. It's basically like from the ocean to, if you know Los Angeles, the 405 freeway, I think is its...
Not quite. About halfway the distance.
Okay.
It's not that large, but what's remarkable is that 80% of the people in the city live in multi-unit dwellings. So
apartment buildings.
Apartments or condos. Mm-hmm. That there's almost 1,000 Teslas registered in Santa Monica.
Wow, that's a lot.
For 90,000 people.
Yeah, that's a high density.
And there's a lot of people in Santa Monica who don't own cars.
Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. It's a very, so it's an affluent part of Los Angeles for the most part. It does, there are very expensive rents, but there are also people who have lived there for a very, very long time. It's, it's a beach community, but it's also very modern. Like, it doesn't feel like, it's not your typical California beach community because there's a lot of businesses in Santa Monica. There's a lot of big hotels.
A lot of big tech.
Right, a lot of tech in Santa Monica. It's a wonderful place.
Yahoo, Universal. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot going on in Santa Monica, and it's also very progressive.
Right.
So there's homeless people all over Santa Monica. They get fed
Right.
2 meals a day. There's all these social services. There's a metro line that comes through the city that's popular. I mean, I think that the most impressive thing about this, and you can read a couple of articles in Teslarati. I put them down here in the links. One was sort of a preview before the meeting. It was titled Tesla's largest V3 supercharger facility is coming to Santa Monica.
Yeah.
That kind of says it all. The largest V3.
It's huge.
And the second one is Tesla Supercharger V3 station with 62 stalls in Santa Monica gains approval despite objections.
Yeah.
And what? What's a progressive city like Santa Monica spending the majority of 3 hours with grief?
There were some valid points that were brought up, though.
All right, well,
there were some valid points that were brought up. Again, I agree that but again, a lot of it was about
what are the key objections?
A lot of it is about education. But what I will say is, like Robert pointed out, like Santa Monica has a huge for the 90,000 people that live there, housing is a huge problem in all of Los Angeles. It's not just specific to Santa Monica.
Well,
that's a problem.
Let me give some of the highlights
Please.
that were presented by Noani and Nadir about the site. It's going to include a bike rack.
Before you start, I just want to say, like, the reason that we're talking about this, yes, it is specific to Santa Monica.
Right.
But these kinds of issues, these kinds of advocacy for supercharging or for charging infrastructure in general are coming to a town near you if you're listening to this. So this is important to either get out in front of it and be proactive about educating your planning commission or the people in your community. That's why we're talking about this. Yes, it is very specific about Santa Monica, but it does have an impact to charging infrastructure writ large.
Yeah, and if you think about the rolling out of superchargers is absolutely integral to Tesla being adopted, EVs being adopted, be it a Tesla supercharger or a Porsche, Electrify America high-speed charger or a CHAdeMO high-speed charger, whatever it is. If a company, just in this example, like Tesla, has to, if they didn't get approved, and then they had to go back and they had to rework the plans and then come back, how much time of the limited supercharger resources would be then expended and not put towards the next supercharger? So let this just sort of serve as a inspiration for getting involved if you get called upon. So despite Tesla including a lot of features with the supercharger, they're putting in bike racks. They are putting in like 300 shrubs and trees, all biodiverse, all supposedly local and native.
Xeriscaping.
They're having they're having 3 large solar canopies with power packs, 2,500 kilowatt hour of battery power packs, so they could.
Jeez.
Yeah, they could do something called peak shaving because the planners were concerned that they didn't want, rich Tesla people pulling electricity from the local grid, potentially harming residents and businesses to charge up their expensive rich people cars. When, so Tesla putting in batteries made them happier that somehow those batteries were going to charge the cars. Did they understand how any of that worked? No. And frankly, I wasn't going to explain it to them to either help them to understand it better or not. I just wanted them to vote on the fucking supercharger.
But the solar canopy will charge some of that battery power.
A little bit, yes. Ugh.
It looks great, though. It looks great.
It does.
But if you think about, hold on one second, but 2,500, and Tesla, part of the presentation was 2,500 kilowatts of battery storage. They oddly said the average visit is about 25 kilowatts. The average visit to a supercharger. I don't know if that's true or not, but they did mention that in the thing. It's about 100 cars over the course of a day.
That's right.
Which is,
That's
interesting. Which is oddly what they said the traffic flow as part of this thing. The traffic flow, they said about 100 cars a day, and I was like, 62 stalls? I don't think so. You guys,
You're looking at a lot more than that.
and that's oddly
But-
of all of the things that the Planning Commission asked.
Yes.
that was the thing they really didn't mention.
Yeah,
Like,
and they were like, they were really unhappy that the Tesla Supercharger could only charge Teslas. And they went
were.
back and forth on this 4 separate times. Like, in other words, they would discuss it, move on to something else. Somebody would talk, whatever. And then some point later, on 4 separate occasions, they had to talk about this again. Why is Tesla so almost like nasty and punitive that they won't allow other cars to charge?
Well, there was like a commissioner that was more concerned about that particular thing, and it's interesting. And in the last week or so, I did a little bit of research, and in Europe, this is the reason why CCS exists, right? In Europe, Tesla Superchargers, a couple of the stalls are open to non-Tesla vehicles. So there is some precedent here in the world of Tesla, oddly enough. The Planning Commission didn't really seem to know that. One of the things that they wanted to put in was a sort of a rider into the thing that, like, if Tesla ever offered this, opening their superchargers to other cars anywhere,
Yes.
that would automatically have to happen in Santa Monica as well. And I just wanted to be like, yeah, this is going on in Europe. So I don't, like, what are you guys talking about? Like, this is a thing.
But Europe has a completely
Right.
different charging
Yeah.
state system.
Right, but
they're
they forced
they're
Tesla
forced
to go
have
to
the-
CCS.
a certain plug
What was that?
too. They're forced to have
Yes.
The CCS
they were
plug.
forced to have certain plugs. Well, yeah, but even before that, well, I
The
guess it still
Menke
is a
plug.
CCS plug. The Menke plug.
Menke plug.
Right. So it was already there, and then according to Elon, a tweet fairly recently, he had said that there are a couple car companies that are paying for charging for their cars, but they want to keep it. That those car companies want to keep it sort of on the down low sort of thing.
Like they're
So
somehow just
it ma-
testing it out. We're talking about Europe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Europe. This is Europe only. And but the US didn't really have these standards, and
Right.
so they went on their own.
Yeah.
It's
Right. And they were
get
like,
it. It's-
and there was like one commissioner who actually had an electric car. I think it might have been a Bolt. And she was like, what's the difference between level 2 and level 3? So, even the people who owned electric cars, I'm not begrudging them. They don't do a podcast to thousands of people every week.
Yeah, they shouldn't.
The reality
I
is
heard you
that-
mentioned on the call too.
Yeah.
that you did that.
And so it was just impressive how long this took. And it really looked like it was going south. It really looked like it was negative. The commission, the chairman was like, I can't agree on this. And a chairman can swing a committee. They have power. They have influence. And the things like that, they had palm trees involved. Holy,
Yeah, they
I
didn't.
did.
they
I
didn't
was
like the
screaming.
landscaping.
But they're not a tree. They're grass. He had to make the point. Palms are not trees. They're grasses. Did you know that?
Yeah, but again,
Did you
like,
know that,
I did
Joel?
not know
a lot
that.
of these
It's so
things-
beautiful.
Like a lot of these
That's the
things
most beautiful grass
A lot
I've
of these
ever
things
seen.
are kind of red herringy. Like the things that they really.
Yes, because as I'm listening to it and I'm
Right.
looking out my window, I'm like counting one after another. There's 100 palm trees out
My
my
guess
window.
is the city of Santa Monica's seal has a freaking palm tree on it. But like whatever.
Whatever.
right?
Let's not
Right,
let's
like-
make it
like-
hard to put in an electric vehicle
Right.
charger in a
But
time of
Tesla was
global
like,
warming.
fine, we'll take out the like again.
Yeah, no,
it's
they were
not,
fine.
It's not a big deal, but like there were issues about fan noise, like in the things, which is
noise.
valid for them to at least ask about and be educated on. That's the whole point
But
of
they
this.
wanted Tesla to geofence
I know.
the charging station.
I thought this
so
was
that if-
interesting, though, right? Like, it's not. It's not interesting.
Can
in,
you
like-
explain that more
Yeah,
though?
yeah,
Okay,
hold on one
here's-
second.
Geofence
Right,
the-
but again, hold on. Like so let's. So basically, this supercharger abuts a lot of apartment buildings, residences,
like
right?
3.
And it's open 24 hours. Well, it's 3-sided.
All right.
And there's there's an apartment building on all
No.
3 of the 4 sides.
Only on the back side.
Okay, so there's an apartment building on the back side of it, on one half of the back side. Anyways, people live there.
Sure.
And we know Superchargers are open 24 hours a day. And we also know that people go to Superchargers and they sit there for 20 minutes, half an hour. It's not like a gas station where you go there, you fill up, and you leave in 2 minutes. We can agree on that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so their concern was that at 2 a.m. or whatever time, a Tesla owner was going to come and charge and apparently have some sort of dance party outside of his vehicle or her vehicle, playing the radio as loud as they possibly could, maybe watching, I don't know, Star Wars on Netflix or whatever.
No, they didn't even know. They were saying radio.
Radio. The radio.
Do you have a radio in your car, Tom?
I do, actually. FM.
Oh, okay.
You don't have a FM in the Model 3? They didn't. They took it out?
I can't get it to work.
that's
I can't find it. I can't get it to work.
That's another show.
It's all tune in.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, they were talking about radio, but that basic premise was they wanted Tesla to write software that geofenced. If your car went into the charger, it could not be loud enough. Like they would regulate the audio loudness of the vehicles based on their proximity, which obviously Tesla was like, we can't really control what our customers do. And worse than that, in my personal opinion,
did they say OTA? Just OTA it.
Well, like Tesla acquiesced to putting up signs saying, please respect your neighbors, which I think is great. Whatever, fine.
Okay.
But,
nice.
But the bigger issue,
how much does a sign cost?
The bigger issue, in my opinion, was when the Planning Commission, and this is where they lost me, to be honest with you, started saying like, well, what if somebody gets attacked or assaulted by somebody? Is Tesla going to have...
Because there's a bathroom on site, and you'll be able to, when you're charging your car, use the code. Remember how you go to Firebar or other Tesla sites, they give you a little code. Mm-hmm. You can go up to the door 24/7, open the door, and go into the bathroom. So they're worried that local homeless are going to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. So what they wanted Tesla to do was put 24-hour security because they didn't want any crime that happened on the Supercharger to fall towards the Santa Monica Police Department
or fire department.
So, like,
that's ridiculous.
Did they want them to have a fire department as well, like on site?
Yeah,
but
no,
I would say is like, they do this to every company?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
Most of the gas stations in Santa Monica
that's not
are
even
open
the worst
24
of it.
hours, right?
They spent like 40 minutes talking about the lack of housing in Santa Monica.
That was a big deal.
There's not enough housing in Santa Monica.
It's not on Tesla.
Which that's no doubt, but they were upset. Why is it that Tesla has to take up the ground floor, the ground level of these two prime lots that could be wonderful housing? Why can't Tesla build housing and stick the chargers on the roof, or stick the solar on the roof and put the chargers down below? And it's like, well, we're not a housing company. We're just leasing this land for 15 years. Thankfully, nobody pointed out that Elon actually owns one of the lots.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, he owns the one on the west side. He bought that like 3 years ago.
Well, that's really interesting because they did talk about the landlords not interested in building.
Correct. You can't force a landlord.
No, I understand that, but is the landlord they were talking about in this particular thing Elon, who just doesn't want to build it? Because
maybe he sold it.
Because they started talking about permitting and density, like, again, but you can use eminent domain to force people to build housing.
That's really great.
Which is not a great thing to do. But I will say there is a gigantic homeless shelter in Santa Monica that I built a Sunday food distribution site at.
Okay.
Personally over a decade ago. And
good job.
It's a giant open area with a lot of housing, temporary housing, emergency housing, evening housing. It's one level.
Yeah.
Like, feel free to donate, $50 million and build out there. Like, that site already exists. There's already,
Yeah.
in that neighborhood, in that area. So like there are other places. Again, it's just these kinds of things to me are sort of ridiculous, holding Tesla to a higher standard. Again, I think Tesla's representatives that you mentioned, they did a really good job, but it just goes to show you don't know what you're going to run into when trying to build this kind of infrastructure. What kind of ask? Like they asked for a police department, they asked for an apartment building, they asked for all kinds of stuff. Fire department. They asked for all this lighting without like light pollution,
right.
They
didn't
this
want
other
the
stuff.
Headlights of the vehicles shining into, and they're like, well, we just followed the city code that said you needed a 4-foot wall to block the headlights, because what was on this site? A used car lot.
Right.
So it's not like it's never been used for cars.
Used car lot's not open at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And again, you're not going to get a lot of traffic, but you might actually in Santa Monica with 62 stalls.
I'm sure
right?
you will, but it's still pretty far from the freeway. It's not a convenient freeway access location.
So at the end of the day, like the chairperson and one of the commissioners voted no, the other 5 commissioners voted yes, and this thing passed. But again, like it's interesting as sort of a cautionary tale in some ways. As we move forward with this infrastructure, we're going to run into problems. It's up to all of us listening to be advocates, to be educational. Again, I may have wanted to vote no. I don't live in Santa Monica.
What?
I may have wanted to vote no for the housing thing. I'm really into the housing situation. I know
so
how
you would say no to a supercharger.
I might say no. I might say no.
A fraction of a percent of the city's size.
Again, like but you know as well as I do that building housing in Santa Monica is very, very difficult. You know that, dude. Like building housing anywhere in LA is difficult. And again, it's not Tesla's problem. I understand that aspect. I would rather have and I talked to you about this via text. Like I would much rather the city of Santa Monica say, fine, we're going to increase the density of those spaces, but we're going to put freaking charging at every single parking meter in the city of Santa Monica.
How about the light poles?
Or on every light pole in the city of Santa Monica.
Isn't that the future?
Every single one of those, right? I would much rather see that. And I don't
Just
care.
say it. Light pole charging is the future.
I have seen the future, and it is light pole charging. Yes.
So I mean, Tom, you're a very reasonable guy, and Robert, you are, and you both love EV charging, and so you can see that reasonable people at least could disagree on charging, and I think that's what kind of makes this this new site that Tesla's putting up, and I've heard it's like an app too as well.
It's a what?
Is really good, like an app like for on there.
I think he's talking about the Engage site.
Oh, okay.
Apparently there's going to be a iPhone app or Android app as well.
That's cool.
That'll be associated with it. Those are kind of things that I would sign up for, and I'd love to get alerts about to talk about why I think it would be helpful to have it. And a lot of these issues are really complex, and this sounds like a complex one in Santa Monica. And sometimes I see, like for my town, there's a lot of things that people want to do, but they're not organized enough to do it. And maybe that's the same thing that's happening with housing.
Yeah.
But there's definitely cases in Texas and Nebraska, and I'm sure in Michigan and many states in the U.S. and probably many other principalities and regions in other countries.
Yeah.
So I kind of like this idea, and I hope they stay with it because if it gets people like you guys involved, get on the phone and you tell your feelings, I think that's always a good thing. And maybe the one extra person helps sways things moving in the right direction.
Yeah, actually, so here's a question for you, Robert. You're a resident of Santa Monica. I'm not a resident of Santa Monica. So again, I don't have any skin in the game as it pertains to that. But on some levels, like we're putting all of the superchargers for Santa Monica basically in one area. There are 10 others in the Santa Monica place, which you mentioned during your comment, your question during the
testimony
during the meeting, your testimony during the meeting. But on some levels, maybe it would have been better to have like eight stall superchargers scattered around the city of Santa Monica. So like if you live on one side of Santa Monica, maybe there would have been a supercharger closer to where your home is. You could go park, walk up to your house, come back and get your car. I mean, there may have been a better way to go about putting that much density or that many superchargers in an area. And in the long run, that's probably better.
You're talking like the gas station model.
Sure, yeah. Like or even say like, okay, Tesla, let's work with the landlords of these 8 gas stations scattered across Santa Monica and put 8 stalls in each of these stations. And again, that's us saying like this is how you should run your business. But again, think outside the box and spread the love around. That doesn't solve the housing problem, and I'm not getting into that, right? But what it does solve is if I live 5 miles away from here and I still want to charge, like that's not super convenient.
Dude, I live within blocks of the Santa Monica Place Supercharger.
Okay.
Do you know how many times I've been to it?
0.
Twice.
1 time. Yeah.
Twice.
Because it's terrible, right?
You have to go in a parking lot that charges you money, of course, but you can get 90 minutes for free. Then you have to go up 7 flights up this corkscrew long around
and it's
through
very
this whole thing.
busy.
And this place gets really busy. I mean, this is the downtown of touristy Santa Monica with a very fancy mall.
And you go to the beach, you want to go to the mall, I mean, for sure.
By the time you get to the top, you've already expended like 10 minutes. Now you're up there. You're going to spend better part of an hour because it's only the 72 kilowatt chargers. And then you have to come all the way back down. I don't use it. This is really great because it's right off the street. It's very visible.
Yeah.
I'm sure part of the reason Tesla wants to do it is because it's very visible. It's very visible.
Yeah, it's one of the highest density tourist areas. My guess is like people will rent Teslas and be able to go and charge them in Santa Monica. Again, like you said, 1,000 Teslas are already registered in the city of Santa Monica, and that's with it being very, very difficult to charge the damn things.
Yeah.
Right? If you live in an apartment building or a condo. We had some guy testify that he spent $2,500 of his own money to install a charger in his apartment building, which is just
really expensive.
That's very, very, very pricey.
Yeah, it's really hard.
So all of those things, again, if this could be service 10 or 12,000 Teslas, over the course of a year, then awesome. But again, I would still much rather see it separated. But I would also say like the Planning Commission shouldn't get into like whether this company needs to do housing. Like if they want housing, they have the power to change the freaking zoning all over the entire city. This is the Santa Monica Planning Commission. If there's some place that's currently zoned industrial, zone it residential. If there's something that's currently zoned single-family home, rezone it.
Yes.
Right? Make it multifamily home. I guarantee you people will sell that crap and build apartment buildings on top of it. So there are other solutions without kind of putting something else on the back of this EV movement that's happening.
And from this meeting, the link is in the website. It's also in the Teslarati article. Oh, did you want to say something, Joel?
No, I was laughing because I really liked Tom's point. So
I was going to say I have a couple media picks this month. We're not quite ready to do media picks, but I'll tell you right now from this, look up the event on the website, and there's a 3-minute comment by a guy named Paul Scott. Paul Scott is one of the original electric vehicle advocates. If you remember, there were a couple of movies like Who Killed the Electric Car, Revenge of the Electric Car. Paul's in both of them. He was like a Leaf advocate. He sold the Leaf. I mean, he's been in and out and all through electric vehicles like crazy. He has an electric motorcycle, or at least he used to. And so he spoke so eloquently. It was just like I felt like I shouldn't talk.
Because what was the gist of what his comment was?
Well, one of the people there said, well, this area is called Car Alley.
Right.
Because there's gas stations, used car dealers, new car dealers, service centers, all along this 1 mile stretch of Santa Monica Boulevard, and he didn't want to add to it.
And this was in response to Tesla opening the supercharger to other electric vehicles.
Oh, he had that in there too. And so basically, Paul said, in part of one of his comments, he said, all along Santa Monica, there are 10 new auto dealerships. And then rather than forcing Tesla to install chargers for other branded electric vehicles, you should force the other branded car dealerships to install chargers on their lots for their cars and their customers.
Yeah, I agree. I think like that is a perfect example of like the hypocrisy,
Yes,
as it pertains to this particular argument. And again, I'm not 100% for it. I'm not 100% against it, but I want to talk about things from all directions. And yes, if you get a permit to open an auto dealership in this country today,
yes,
you should put some chargers on that lot.
a whole bunch.
A whole bunch of chargers and make those public and able, whether you charge your customers for it, whatever,
Yes.
that's on you.
So just as an aside, the Toyota dealer, right? And I started out with a Toyota Prius, and then I got a plug-in Prius. And I was like, great, plug-in Prius. I go do things all around this Toyota dealer on Lincoln and Santa Monica Boulevard. And so they had 2 chargers. The first time I went there, they were charging their own cars. I was like, hey, I'm going to be in Santa Monica for an hour and a half. Can I plug in? Oh, yeah, let me get somebody. I don't know where the keys are. I stood there for 10 minutes. This happened to me, I don't know, 20 times. They're moving cars around. They just piled a bunch of cars, ICE cars, in front of the chargers. You couldn't even get near them.
Yeah.
And one night, I plugged in my car. They chained my car. They put my car behind a chained fence. I couldn't get my car out. I was like, I came out from dinner. I was like,
Wow.
What's going on? So this is how the car dealers treat electric cars. And so screw them. Why should Tesla allow any of them to charge at a Tesla charger?
That was Toyota, right?
I'm sorry.
was
Yeah.
Toyota
Toyota.
So Joel, me and Robert, been talking about this for a while, but you also watched a little bit of this, if not most of this meeting. And I was wondering, like, from somebody living in Massachusetts, dealing with different situations, I guess, what's your perspective in general on what would happen, what went down during the meeting?
Well, I think, I think the key thing, I like the eloquence of some of the speakers in talking about it. But what this all reminded me of is there's been a lot of things in my town where we've had a lot of Zooms where there was a couple things where we thought things were going completely one way, like not the way that we wanted. And I think sometimes the leadership or the chairman tries to sort of pressure whatever the body is. In this case, it was Tesla. They try to pressure them and make it sound like they're not going to do it, and maybe try to get additional concessions. But I thought that it was great I think I heard maybe 4 or 5 speakers who really talked about what it was, what it would be like to have electric vehicles there and to have good charging there and what it will do for the community and what money it can bring into the community. I think that this plus the Engage site, I think, is something that, like I said earlier, I want to be a part of. And I'm hoping that I can even listen in on more of these things, not only in my area, but maybe even in California, because who knows where I may be living in the future too. So
yeah, I think that was one of the disappointing things for me. Is I think at peak there were 16 people watching this meeting.
That's crazy. And one was me, one was you, one was Joel,
and one was like there were like. And the other 5 speakers were probably like those.
And there was a guy in Canada who I went back and forth on Twitter with, and I was like, whoa.
So that part of it's a little disappointing, right? This is a big deal.
One was the president of the LA club.
Right. There's 90,000 people in Santa Monica that, like, again, this is the point. Like, local politics really comes down to a very small amount of engagement.
Really small.
If you show up at a meeting where it could go either way, chances are it's going to go your way. Because if they would have gotten 20 people that were like, I want to talk I want to vote for this thing, like, these are their constituents. Like, these are people that live in this community and have a say, and you can make a difference. And what is it? Like, the only real change that ever happens on this planet is by a small group of people. And that's what we are right now. We're a small group of people.
You, Talking Tesla Nation.
Right, yeah.
All of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So actually, Robert wanted me to do an addendum here, and that is to say that the story isn't over. Decisions were made at that meeting, but they might be overturned. So I will let Robert give us an update. The whole point of this is not what's happening in Santa Monica. The point of this is, this week in your local government. If you want to see change in your local government, then you need to get there because there's so few people that make some of these decisions. So let's continue.
Well, I don't know. There's lots of exciting stuff that was going on in like space. I know it's getting late. I think
it is. Yeah.
Sap is looking a little tired. Why? Is it like 2:00 in the morning for you?
So let's go to media picks. I think this is a good time, and I want to go first this time, and I have two because it's me.
Wow.
And I've got two, and it's not super surprising.
He
and
does
the
a
first
machine gun approach.
The first one is a book. It's called the Tartine Cookbook. It's a bread making book. Tartine.
It's a great bakery in San Francisco.
Great bakery in San Francisco, and they opened a little thing in Los Angeles,
Santa
as
Monica,
well. Right,
within blocks of the new Supercharger.
Right. So a great cookbook. I'm currently baking a couple loaves of bread from their cookbook right now, and then the second one I would love for people to go and watch is on YouTube. If you do a search for The Letter from Birmingham Jail by Martin Luther King, you can actually hear him reading the letter that he wrote in the Birmingham jail in response to a bunch of religious leaders who wrote that he should stop protesting in Birmingham. And it's the letter itself, just reading the letter is quite powerful, but hearing him read the letter in his own voice, in his own words, was quite powerful for me as well. So
Dude, how are you so deep? You are ridiculously deep.
I just like it just hit me as like a thing.
Amazing.
Like recently I was listening to some other podcast and they were talking about it, and I wanted to read it, so I read it, and I wanted to see if he ever gave it publicly as a speech. And you search YouTube and you can find pretty much anything, and it's incredible. It's pretty long. It's a very long letter. But in it, he just makes so many points that unfortunately are still really poignant and valid today, just about how people think and people's frames of mind about all kinds of issues. Like it doesn't have to necessarily just be race equality issues, but all kinds of issues, and just how you think about it and the hypocrisy behind some people's thinking. And it's really good. I recommend it. Feel free to listen to it. That's mine. Joel?
That's great. Completely different. Kids books. So I have two boys. 7 and 9 right now.
You better get that right, buddy.
I'm remembering. And one is turning 10 in a couple days. And just want to recommend a good book for kids. And so this is something that was an audio book. It's called Zero G by Dan Wells. And it's about a boy who's taking I was looking for a book about space that my kids would learn a little bit of science about.
Not another thing about space, Dad.
And well, it took a day or so, and we listened to it at night, like for like a half hour at night. One is you learn a lot about physics and science, but in this interesting story about a ship that's going to a planet that's a bunch of light years away, and they travel for about 100 years. But they're in stasis, but this one 12-year-old boy, something happens with the stasis pod, and he gets kicked out of his stasis pod, with like 30 days into the mission.
Wow.
And finds out that there's a band of pirates that are trying to take over the ship and take it to another planet and enslave all the people that are in the ship. And there's something like 20,000 people in the ship.
Cool story.
But they're all asleep.
Right.
And it's a cool story. And my kids absolutely loved it. And my wife loved it. And she was mad that we played it this morning when she was going for a walk with one of her friends. It's it's worth doing. It's free on Audible. If you have Audible, it's free. But the book, I've seen the book elsewhere as well.
But Audible's not free, right?
No, Audible's not. Actually, you can get a. If you don't have it, you can get a free month, and this would be free at this point. So there's some books like all the Culture series you have to buy, or you have to use a credit, which means you have to at least have a month in before you get a credit. But in this case, it's free. But you can also find the book at libraries as well.
Yeah,
really, it's not this Martin Luther King deep. So thank you very much for outblacking me. But
whoa! Like that was not my intention whatsoever. Like I hope it didn't. I hope it doesn't.
No,
come off.
you're all good.
Hope it doesn't come off like that.
Zero. But this is a great book for kids. And if you have kids, I suggest listening to it, especially if you love science.
So is it? Let me ask. Is it the? Have you seen the hard copy, like Kindle non-audible version? Like, is it a graphic novel? Because that's what it looks.
It's not a graphic.
It's not a graphic novel.
Yeah, it does look like. I haven't seen it though, but I don't think it's a graphic novel.
So it's $2.99 if you go to Amazon and buy it via Kindle, which I recommend. So then they don't print it, ship it, or send it to you.
Right.
Right. You can get the
Although
same.
the money does go to Amazon.
Same. Sure. Not the Amazon, but Amazon.com. Yes. Yes. The money does go. But if you have an independent local books dealer, feel free to jam in there and order it from them directly.
Go Book Monster.
Book Monster or Powell's if you're in the Pacific Northwest, whatever. Although I don't know if
or
you call
just your
Powell's an
local
independent
bookstore
or the library or wherever. Like this may be a perfect way to use the Libby app, right? Like you could.
I'll check to see if it's on Libby.
Okay.
It reminds me.
Well, it would depend on your local library whether or not it's on Libby or not, right?
Yeah, true that.
They use Libby or I forgot the other one, Ovion. But it sounds like the movie Passengers a little bit.
Yeah.
With Jennifer Lawrence. That came out in 2016. I really liked the premise of that one. It also had
I never saw that.
Bradley Stewart. Bradley, oh man, what's his name? Oh no, it was Chris Pratt. That was a great movie, but it was the same thing. He wakes up because of a pod malfunction. And he is kind of like a MacGyver, fix things, but everybody on the ship has basically bought like a 200-year ship travel to a new planet that they were going to that, it's opportunity and what have you. And for the short period of time before the ship took off and for the short period of time when the ship is getting prepared to dock at its destination, people would be awake and it's a big, beautiful ship. But all the other time, everyone is asleep. He wakes up. It's a problem. He's trying to figure out why. He realizes that there's some kind of a problem with the ship. And he's also going stir crazy because he's so alone. And he starts becoming like dependent on alcohol. And then he knows this woman who was on the ship, or he had walked the ship pods like over and over. He found her and he fell in love with her. And then he like jacked her pod and woke her up. And he didn't reveal to her that he had done this. I don't want to go into it because it's an adult story, but I thought it was so well done. So well done. And it really gets your mind around how long distance space travel will work because it's far away from us. I mean, we think Mars is far, 6 months away. Oh my God. You try to get out to the moons of Jupiter or Saturn, you're talking like an order of magnitude farther or more. I mean, and it goes beyond that by many orders of magnitude. So this is a great story. I love all of this space travel stuff because we really are in the infancy, or even the fetal stages of that kind of development for mankind.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm gonna listen to that book. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's very, very cool.
I might even listen to Tom's recommendation.
You got one?
Oh, am I making a recommendation? Absolutely. Well, first of all, I told you about Paul Scott. And then I had one here that's another in the series of The Expanse. It's called Cibola Burn. And I'm actually on the next book after that one. This is like the fourth book, I think, in the series by James S.A. Corey. And it gives you a sense for, again, how would life out in space, In other words, where you live your entire life in space from birth to death. You've never been on a what they call gravity well planet like Earth. These are people who, you think about it, if you're born out in space with low gravity, maybe a third gravity on Mars or even less in some other settings, if you had to come to Earth, it would be a death sentence. You would die. Your bones would just crush. You'd have to take like hormones and bone strengthening chemicals, and you wouldn't have the muscles to get around. It would be really, really hard.
Is that why we don't have aliens here?
Maybe. Maybe.
Interesting.
If they're on a low gravity well planet like Mars or smaller, yeah.
That'll teach them.
Yeah. Or if they've just been traveling space for a very long time, they wouldn't make it. So this is really good. And they go and they visit a planet that is beyond. And it's really cool. It's very good. I love this. The series is really good. I don't know. I haven't been watching the TV show lately. The TV show kind of jumps around and it grabs, sort of little storyettes out of the major books. But I highly recommend it. Cibola Burn.
Cool.
And Mel, what do you have?
Rocket Man movie and book.
Oh, you got to read it like.
I can't do it. I can't do it justice.
Arnold accent.
Well, Rocket Man movie and book. I don't even know what that means.
Well, Rocket Man is the movie about Elton John.
It is? But why the movie and the book? Or is the book The Expanse? Is that what he's trying to get at? I don't. He actually writes worse than he speaks in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think he's liking a TV. I think he's referring to The Expanse as the TV show because none of the books are technically called The Expanse.
So is it watch the Rocket Man movie, read the Rocket Man book, and then read the book The Expanse? Is that what I don't know. He's not here, so who gives a shit what his media pick is, to be completely honest with you.
You're getting pummeled.
He's going to cut that out. He's going to just completely cut you out.
He's asleep. No, in all seriousness. Rocket Man movie, a great movie, very sad portrait of Elton John's early life in music and how he just felt all alone and turned to drugs and alcohol to try to make himself feel better. Mm-hmm. Very terrible, very sad to see that side of it. But luckily, Sir Elton has been sober for many, many years. And
got himself straight.
And, has graced this world with some of the finest music that
he did write and read a great biography. I think I might have used it as a media pick in the past because it's not on my book list here, but I thought it was great because it gave the backstory because I grew up with Elton John.
Yeah.
And he was the Cowboy album. I think I played until you couldn't play it anymore.
Yeah.
And the same thing for Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
And what's your favorite song on the Cowboy album?
God, I love all of them.
Just pick one. We don't do enough music media picks.
I don't know.
So just the Cowboy album by Elton John. Good add-on.
Yeah.
Media pick.
It's a great album.
Put it down on the dock so we can have it. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks to all the listeners.
That's it.
Thanks for leaving us a review. Go to Patreon and give us some money.
5-star reviews. What happens if you get a 5-star review? If we get a 5-star review, what happens, Joel? Do you
well,
know?
you know what? Since we recorded the last show,
have it read
no one has given us a 5-star review. That's why we're not reading them.
What?
I know.
Come on, people. Get those
together.
reviews out there.
Jump on the bandwagon.
Wherever podcasts are found, review the hell out of it. And give us a 5-star shitty review, but make it 5 stars.
Yes. You can say whatever you want. We'll read it.
Yeah.
You can make it in Pig Latin and we'll force Mel to read it.
That would be super fun, actually.
Wouldn't it?
Actually, I may actually write a review in Pig Latin just to force Mel to read it.
So he doesn't listen to the show, so he won't know you've done that.
That was good. I thought it was nice that we read those. So
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll read them again. We'll continue to read them.
Also, go to tesla.com/support/owners club, or go to the new Engage Tesla website, join your local club, get involved, hang out, be it via Zoom or just like in your car with a mask and a respirator, and just have fun with other Tesla owners.
Yeah.
There are a lot of cool people out there.
If you don't know, learn.
now you know.
If you do know, teach.
Bravo.
If you teach, advocate. And we'll see you next time.